Right, so the question is, with VR becoming more and more of a thing, and the reality that for a lot of people, motion sickness is also a thing, and those two intertwine very, very heavily in a lot of ways. What are some ways that developers are finding to try to account for that, to make this new, cool experience playable for the kinds of people who just are going to get sick in 5 minutes? And actually, I'm curious if you've been running into a lot of devs who have been experimenting with it and trying to find solutions.
Yes, but before I talk about solutions, I will reiterate the thing that I've said a lot. I am actually skeptical about our current iteration of our VR future, because I have seen in my career VR come and go 4 or 5 times. And it's sort of always been like 3D movies, where every 10 years 3D movies roll around, everybody's like, oh, they're the future. And it turns out they're a gimmick that are really good for some movies, but they're just not the thing that we're gonna do for all movies all the time, because they aren't the best solution. And until we get a space which we can walk around and be physically present in our VR world rather than just tilt our head, I don't think it's going to be this big shift. I mean, how many years now have we been talking about the Oculus Rift? And we still don't see it as, I mean, even making percentage inroads into how we play games. Facebook has the dollars to throw at it to make it a solid reality. I hope someone solves some of the problems with it, but I'm a little bit skeptical still. That caveat aside, I know I've actually seen several companies hire people who are basically virtual haptics experts or virtual kinetics experts, which translates to they understand things like motion sickness really well, and a lot of it is simply in keeping your camera and your head motion aligned. And so there's one of the things we found out early on, I'll just give one example so I can pass this along, is a lot of times in an FPS, right, I can move my look with my mouse. But if I can move my look with my mouse and with my head, I can start having very, very weird things happen where I'm sort of simultaneously moving in 2 directions, or my torso is actually twisted in-game, my in-game character's torso is twisted, while my real-life torso is not, and my body freaks out. And so we've seen a lot of things that sort of lock some of these things, or eliminate your avatar, your virtual avatar entirely, so that way you don't have the point of reference that your body doesn't understand. So there are steps being taken. They've also done a lot, like up the refresh rate and the pixel density on some of these things, which makes it substantially easier to have 2 screens this close to your face. So there is work being done. But it's all small individual things. I think it will end up being an agglomeration of small individual things.
I don't have much to say, but there is a sort of bias problem from developers where the more that you use, like the Rift, for example, the less likely you are to become nauseous by it, just like your body acclimates. And it's tough because if you're a developer, you've been using the thing so often, you don't get that motion sickness anymore. It becomes harder and harder to tell. Well, I mean, obviously you can bring people into playtest, but in actual development, practice, I know that's tricky because there starts to become a gulf between the developer and the player, and I don't know how to resolve that.
All right, let's have another question here. Let's see.
I'm so glad you have to pick and I don't.
With the water bottle right here.
So Extra History, Patreon is at 10K. You did it, guys.
Thank you all, by the way. Thank you so much.
Extra History has hit the 10K mark on Patreon, for those of you who didn't know.
So with the new weekly episode, will we see in-depth, which is the same number of topics, or the same sort of standard had less topics, but more topics?
So we will be seeing more topics, and I will die.
But I like you, don't die.
Thank you. So Extra History has hit the 10K mark on Patreon. Couple of things. We are currently exploring new artists for Extra History. After Sengoku Jidai comes the South Seas Company. It will probably start hitting once a week after the South Seas Company because it takes some time to bring on a new artist, make them fit the art style, all this sort of thing. We will be seeing about the same length anywhere from 3 to 6 episodes per topic, but we will be seeing more topics because we have a lot of history to fill in.
Yes, and we're still figuring out some details, but it may also involve one thing I would like to do, and I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to have the artists, rather than switching off episode by episode like they do with extra credits, switching off series by series so that there's a bit of consistency to their look and their art style, because I expect whoever we bring in for extra history, the other artist is going to bring a little bit of their own flair, just like David does to extra history, and I would love to be able to have them have each series really feel like their own, like they own it. But since series can be of varying lengths, like Sengoku Jidai is going to be 6 parts, and another one might just be 3 or 2, then that makes some weirdness there with scheduling. So we might start actually also creating and releasing little short one-offs now and then as well, just for a little quick, I mean, I guess I would assume they would be just little quick glimpses into a bit of a historical era, or just a small, tiny topic that you'd love to go.
So some of them will be small things like if there's a particular battle that we think is really interesting, or a particular day in the French Revolution, right? There's some stuff about the Estates General that I think is fascinating that happened in one day that we encapsulate in a single episode that doesn't make sense to do as a series. But the other thing that we'll also be doing is sort of why it matters, right? There's a lot of these topics that eventually, in the long term, if we were able to do this for 10 years, I would love to have a lot of series about things like Roman history or whatever, but have those playlists start with something that explains why this is important, why we care about it today. So we might also do those as one-offs, as to fill out between the artists' schedules.
Yeah, we shall see, but yeah, it's in the mix. But yeah,
And
the
thank
weekly
you again, by the
extra
way.
coming. And yes,
It's unbelievable to me that so many people are so interested, because just one thing to tell all of you, when we started this, we had everyone. We had people from all over telling us, you can't do that. If you put history on a gaming channel, you're going to kill your channel. And we said, no, I don't think you know this audience. And we did it, right? Everybody told us, start a new channel, do it on a totally different name, if you're going to do it. We said, no, I think you don't understand. There is a lot of overlap. You don't give enough credit to people who love games, right? And in the end, we see more views on an extra history than we do on an extra credits. So thank you again. That's amazing.
let's have another question. What do you want to know? I'll go with the normal hand not object. You, sir.
So, I hate to ask this, but how do you think disabled people can represent getting better?
What was say? Can you repeat that?
How do you think disabled people could be represented better in gaming?
How do you think disabled people?
Yes. How do we think disabled people could be better represented in gaming?
I think we can do a lot better. Did you play Sly Cooper? Which Sly Cooper was this?
Fight 3.
Yes! Yes, I'm glad you know. I thought that was fantastic, right? I think that...
Actually, I kind of disagree.
Oh, tell me.
Because they put him in a wheelchair, right? He gets injured, they put him in a wheelchair. It changes nothing. Nothing about this play style changes at all. It's just he's in a wheelchair. What point is that, sir?
So it's true. It depends on which side. I took it as saying that it wasn't limiting, right? That in the end.
That's one way to look at it. Can't argue that.
So I mean, I totally get it, and I understand that may not be even the best message, but I felt like it was an acknowledgement and then saying he can still do what everybody else does. But I would love to hear more about your perspective on it.
Right now, or I can email you.
Well, actually, yeah, sure. Email us a credit. But if there's anything have you seen any really good representations? Because I would love to check out more.
That's exactly on that. Honestly, I really have it. Like you said, there's nothing inside 3, and there was one character in Bulletstorm. It's like, it doesn't really. It's like, I don't. The best I can put it is, it's like when you talk about women in gaming, and you put price on a character model, and suddenly it's a woman.
Right. Sure.
It's just, and it doesn't. It sort of feel like that's really explored. Like, what do you mean to be disabled, or what does that mean? That's the part that personally I'd like to see.
There was that one game that got kickstarted or crowdfunded in some capacity that was and I I didn't keep track of it and see what ended up with it, but there was a game that is about a function that is like you cannot see anything. It is only through sound that you're. Which was that Pulse? Yes. Did it come out? Like I didn't see it. Okay, it's still coming. So that one, something like that actually does potentially like, because I mean, nice thing about games, they can put you in people's shoes. Like if a game can manage to simulate an experience in which you could in some small way get a taste of that sort of experience of having a disability or of just something to help develop that empathy and further understanding. I think games could be great for that. And the more I think about it, it does seem weird that there are not very many of those.
And I think part of it is, again, a diversity in the industry issue, right? A lot of us don't know the perspective, but don't know what it is that you may have to deal with every day, right? And so our ability to put that in the game is limited, and we need to reach out more. I mean, part of it is we just need to reach out to a community that really understands these things if we're going to represent them.
One game that actually just occurred to me, I think it's out. I hope it, someone can maybe confirm, but there's a game for iPad called Pry. And it's about a war, it's about a guy from, I think he's in Afghanistan, whose eyesight is destroyed by, the game is very abstract. I mean, it's not about the day-to-day experiences of being blind the way that I think Pulse, was that the one that you sounded more like that was maybe a little bit more? But Pry is more of like an emotional exploration of if you had like this faculty and then one day you lost it, what's the internal emotional experience of that like? And I thought it was very well done, and I think it's on the App Store right now.
That's fascinating. I haven't actually heard of that one. I will have to check that out because I'm surprised I haven't come across that.
And that's what I'm wondering, if maybe it isn't out and I accidentally played a preview build or something. So I should check or something and make sure that it is out. But I definitely recommend it.
But on the other hand, one of the good things that comes from this is we talked about two games which are sort of imminent release, so we're starting to think about it. It's just slow, going to be a long process, but at least we're starting to think about other perspectives than the one that we've looked at for so long.
Pry is out. Pry is out right now? Okay, great. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Next up, let's see. I see someone holding up a phone on this side. Yes, hello. Oh.
Going back to VR a little bit, Microsoft and Razer and Facebook really wants to believe that this time VR and AR are the future of gaming. But what I've been seeing is that everything involved in this is either a new interface on the mechanics or an artistic experience and not gaming. What have you seen in terms of mechanical methods or mechanics methods for utilizing this potentially new technology?
So, I mean, there's a million things we could do, right? The one that immediately jumps to mind to me is being something like a Secret Service guy, right? You're just standing there, you're looking around the room, and threat assessment, right? And you just blink or whatever to indicate that, hey, we should take another look at those guys, right? There's a million different mechanics that we can do that just involve that head motion and maybe some eye tracking. We haven't done that, right? We keep integrating other things. And functionally, it works really great. VR is perfect for anything you're in a cockpit because it feels right to, if you've got a joystick or if you've got a mouse and keyboard, to be flying a space fighter. But for individual mechanics that utilize VR, I think we have to start thinking about mechanics about observing the world. And we haven't really thought about that as a mechanic yet. And so I think there's a lot of possibility.
Good answer. All right, let's see here. Let's get some more questions. Way over on this side, dark hair. Yes, you're waving your hand. That's you.
Mobile. We want to hear how many people care about mobile. Couple. All right.
According to the MTA framework, so to say, I was thinking that when you decide for mobile, one of the main things you have to take into consideration feel like when designing, sometimes that goes against some of the other things I've learned watching your videos and also like medicine and all that. So how do you balance this need for doing application in games with, I don't know, like I want to make an action game, not an RPG or something like that. I need that application because that kind of like is a constraint. How do you deal with that?
That sounds like a good one for the designers. The question is basically like in the mobile space, since abnegation is such a key part of the experience and that's what so many of that audience is looking for, like it's kind of a really big restriction if you're not wanting to necessarily make that a big part of your game. And how do you work around that, or how do you deal with that?
So for me, I would say that first off, that is something that a lot of people are looking for. But you only care if what you're really looking to do is hit 10 million people, right? 50 million people. You may not worry about that, right? You may hit the niche that doesn't want that, or the times at which those people want something different. But you can also look to other things, right? World of Warcraft is in large part an abnegation game as well, if you exclude certain rating. Facebook, the experience of Facebook itself for most people is an abnegation experience. What was that? So the experience of Facebook itself is an abnegation experience for most people, the way most people use it. So there's lots of different ways that we provide this. And then if you really, really care, you can slide people away from that, right? You can start people at that point, get them invested, and then bring them towards more and more complex activities. But that's my thoughts. What about you guys?
I feel like a wet rag. This is so not the like space that I operate in. I mean, for the most part. Yeah.
All right, good answer. All right. No, you said different.
Good answer. Okay.